Hey everybody, this is Frilioth and welcome to another Minecraft episode. Today's slightly different from normal episodes. Today I just want to showcase my new trading hall, my new 1.13 trading hall. Now at first glance it looks very similar to the 1.12 version, but there are quite a few fundamental differences and improvements. So I thought today I'd just spend a little bit of time talking you through them. So the first difference I'll show you is the fact that they're no longer travelling down fence gates. Since update Aquatic, minecarts on top of fence gates only travel about 4 blocks, which means that now you have to put a signpost in every 4 blocks, which has caused a problem at the end because there's nothing stopping the water at the end of the old trading hall, and there isn't at this one either, but you don't need it. But at the old trading hall there's nothing stopping it, so you couldn't put a signpost 4 blocks away from the end, otherwise the water would just flow off the end and ruin the tracks. So we've changed it so they now run on top of trapdoors. These can be metal trapdoors or wooden trapdoors, but they run on top of trapdoors, and because they're not raised like they are on top of fence gates, they travel the entire full 8 blocks on top in the water stream on top of the doors, which is brilliant. So now you can have a line of 8 villagers without having to worry about splitting them up every 4 blocks. The next change is they use a completely different mechanism for identifying whether or not there's a villager in the bay. Now in the previous version they sat on a detector rail which put a signal out through a torch tower into a repeater and then into the fence gate at the top. These use a completely different mechanic. These sit on top of trapdoors, and the way that the system knows there's something in the bay is the fact that their heads are very slightly above, because the trapdoor raises them up slightly. Their head is very slightly in some string that's just above their heads, and that's detected by the observer block behind it. And when there's something in the string, i.e. a villager, it puts a 1-tick pulse through this repeater which extends the sticky piston, and because it's a 1-tick pulse it leaves behind the cauldron, and then the cauldron is, because the cauldron's full, it gives out a redstone signal that's detected by the comparator, and the comparator opens or closes the gate. And if the gate is closed, if the trapdoor is closed, then a villager in a minecart will fall through it onto the rails. It's a mechanic that's been used with soul sand before, but I've never seen it used with trapdoors before. And the problem with soul sand is if the villager gets sucked through soul sand onto a rail, they take damage. If they get sucked through a trapdoor onto rails, they don't take any damage, which means that we can recycle the villagers through the system if we want to move them about. So let me just show you a cross section of it over here. So initially the villager will come down a water chute along the top of the farm. We'll assume, just for demonstration purposes, that this cyan wool, I don't know whether it's cyan or light blue actually, but this wool represents a water stream, and the villager is going to be in a minecart on top of that trapdoor, or all of the trapdoors like we've just seen down there, going down there. If the trapdoor is open, it means there's something in the bay, so the villager just keeps going by until he finds one that is actually closed. Once we press the button here and flush the villager that's already in the bay, he changes the state of that string, because he's in the string. When he falls out of it, he changes the state, and that's detected by this observer, which puts a signal through the repeater like I've just shown you, which collects that cauldron, which turns off that comparator, which closes the trapdoor. Now the trapdoor is closed. When a villager goes above it in the water stream, the water doesn't move, The water stays at that height. Once a villager comes over the top of the trapdoor, he gets sucked through the trapdoor onto those rails. Then, because the rails are against a solid block, he's forced forward. He falls down onto this trapdoor, going through the string. But because he doesn't go in it and then out of it again, he only changes the state of it once, which forces that cauldron back up, which opens that trapdoor, which stops any of the villagers from falling in. Which is brilliant. Now I'll just show you how that works over here. So I've grabbed a willing contestant. So the trapdoor is open, therefore the water is flowing across above the top of it. The villager gets above the open trapdoor and he won't fall through. Can't fall through. However, if he's coming down here and the trapdoor is closed, he falls straight through it into the bay. The string is activated, the trapdoor opens, stopping any of the villagers from falling through. It's brilliant. I'm really impressed with it. Really impressed with it. Because as I said, the falling through a trapdoor, he doesn't take damage. If he fell through soul sand, then he would take suffocation damage. And the beauty of this is if we wanted to move these villagers around, say we wanted that librarian there in place of the nitwit. We wait for a little bit of room and then we make sure that the dead man switch is on so we can't kill them. Send him on his way and then vacate the bay where we want him to go. He'll go around the system and then fall back into the bay where you wanted him to be. Brilliant. And if I wanted that nitwit to be where that guy is, leave a bit of space, send the nitwit. Oh, I think I might have not left enough space. No. Never mind. As soon as he falls through, I should be able to eject him and still have time to get the nitwit in. There you go. So we've got the nitwit in. So if you wanted to, you can move them about to have them in some kind of order, which you couldn't do with the old system. Now, because in the 1.13 update, you're able to put normal chests next to each other, we've been able to put chests above their heads so that you can put their trading items in there. So if you've got a really good librarian that's got a really good paper trade, then you could fill that with paper. And if you've got a really good butcher leather worker then, that gives you a good trade on leather, you can put leather in there. If you've got a really good nitwit who nitwits don't trade, do they? So the 1.13 allows us to do that, which I think is brilliant. Now, as with the previous version of the Villager Trading Hall, it's directional. You really need to be building it so that the rails go east to west. When you're looking at it like this, you really want to be either looking to the east or to the west. At the moment, if you look at the top left-hand corner, we're looking westward. So you either want to be looking west or looking east. If you build it, when you're looking at it north or south, it causes a lot of trouble, a lot of problems trying to get the rails in because of how rails snap together. And I'll quickly demonstrate that, although I'm sure you most of you know. You need to put rails like this initially to get them going in the right direction on there, to get them, not joined together like that. You need to put them down in twos, and then you need to get rid of the back one, and then you can put a block behind it, and there you go. You've got your rails just there. And it's the same at the bottom. To get them like that, you need to do that kind of malarkey. If you're trying to build it facing north to south, when you put the rail like that to start with, when you put the one next to it, it snaps over. So although it's facing the right direction to start with, you put a rail next to it, it snaps that way, east to west. So you can't... you can do it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you really put your mind to it, you'd be able to do it. If you put 3 rails and then put one there, you can do it. And then you just get rid of those 2, and you do that, and you put one there, and then you delete that, and you do that, and you put one there, and then you get rid of those, do that, put one there. But if you mess it up by mistake and accidentally put one there first, you have to go back and start again. So it's possible, but it's difficult. So my advice would be always try and build this, if you can, where you're facing east and west. Now at the moment, as I say, I've been working on this all weekend since Friday. And although I'm really happy with the way it is at the moment, I still think there are a few tweaks that need to be implemented. The first one being for the rail at the top around the back. See if we can get around there and have a look. This would be the input, by the way. Your villager breeder can be wherever you want it to be, and then the line can come in. It doesn't have to come up like this. It can come in any way you like, but it comes in over the back, and then the minecart falls down. Let's get a village one here. If he doesn't run away, we're golden. Like that. The villager comes along, falls onto the track and joins the system. Now my problem at the moment is that the villagers come round. If there's only a certain amount of villagers in the system and they're not, then the new ones aren't joining, they won't get stuck. However, when a new one joins, if he's too close behind the one that's already in front of him, he'll bounce back and forth off the villagers that's in front of him. Now, most of the time, he'll clear through. But if there are a few villagers doing it, bouncing backwards and forwards, they can get stuck on the corners. So we'll have a minecart there, and we'll have a minecart there. They'll bash against each other, and they'll stop working. They'll stop moving. And it doesn't matter how many villagers come along behind, they won't clear the 2 that are trapped in the corner. Now, I'm sure there's a way of sorting it out, but I just haven't looked at it yet. So I would suggest that if you built this in the guise that it's in now, then you leave some kind of doorway up the top so you can get up there and manually push them out of the way. Once they're in the system and they're going around, they're automatically separated by long enough, because of the speed they're going in the water and the speed they go when they land on the rails. They're separated by long enough for there not to be a problem. It only happens when new villagers are introduced to the system. So the disposal, which I'll just talk you through the disposal. In the last one we had a waste disposal where you press a button, they went down and got flushed away. This uses a very, very similar waste disposal system, whereas if you're using it as sort of waste disposal, they'll go down into there underneath some solid blocks. The villager takes suffocation damage, so your reputation in the village doesn't get affected, and you'll still get decent trades, because if you start whacking villagers with swords, it affects the trades that you get with the villagers. So you really don't want to be knocking them off yourself, which is why we use a suffocation chamber. And the villager goes through the suffocation chamber, the minecart comes out at the end, and it goes back off to your villager breeder and gets recycled for the next breeder, for the next villager to come along. If you want to keep the villager, if you want that farmer and you want to send him off to a farm somewhere, then flick the dead man switch. The block comes across, blocking access, and as I said, because the villagers always go to the south, if this at the moment is on the west side, if this was on that side, we'd still want the waste disposal to be on the south edge of it. Don't get confused by left and right. The villager will always go south. So if we had this over there like that one, that disposal has to be on the right hand side, has to be on the south side. So your dead man switch has always got to be at the south end of your villager trading hall. So if we wanted to keep that farmer, we flick the dead man switch, block goes down, we then divert the tracks off to wherever our farm is, press a button, and the farmer goes off to start a new life somewhere else. He's just going to rejoin the system up there, but you get the point. So that's a quick look at the new trading hall for 1.13. I will be doing a tutorial on it as soon as I can. Hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later. But I hope you've enjoyed this little sneaky preview. If you have, please don't forget to leave it a like. And if you've really loved it, don't forget to subscribe for future videos. This is Frilioth, and I'm out of here.